Forge the Narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. This is episode 293. We are the Bone Law Sauce Podcast. I'm joined tonight by Chris Morgan.
How you doing?
And Jim Vessel.
I'm back.
Jim, turn into a regular.
Hopefully.
Chris, man, good to see you.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, this is my Wednesday night.
We are barreling towards episode 300. I'm going to continue to try to do some interesting things along the way. And this episode, I've got a segment to inject from Mini Wargaming Dave. He's wanting to talk about some of the cool things they got going on up there in the bunker. And we cover, I don't know, he's always thinking outside the box. Really entertaining to listen to and watch. I mean, as you know from those YouTube channels, and he tells us about a lot of cool things he's got planned up there for their new space.
Their space is amazing, if you haven't checked it out.
They're flexing, man. I mean, I don't want to spoil the segment, but they're really flexing and showing what is possible for, I mean, it took a risk. I mean, obviously, everything you do has a risk, and they're getting those rewards from it by really getting to explore that space and do some things that I think a lot of people sit around and think, wouldn't it be cool if this existed or we could do this, and they're doing it? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, first of all, it's awesome because they're Canadian, which is the best part. So obviously Canadians do the best things. Second, the investment in energy, I'm sure they'll talk about it on the segment, but the investment in energy they've put in it is incredible. And just to see how much they've grown is really cool.
Speaking of Canada and some other places and countries, I've learned that in iTunes, which I've been reading some of those 5-star reviews, if you leave us a 5-star review, I'm going to do my best to get to it in a timely manner to read it on air. I have learned that I, as someone living in the U.S., don't see the reviews posted from other countries. I have to go and manually type in the URL, or to not type in the whole URL, change the country code in the URL to see those reviews. And so I will read some of them on this episode, and I apologize for the ones that I have, for the delay it's taken me to discovering this and not reading the ones that have been posted so far.
They're going to be 1-star reviews after learning that.
I hope not. I'm humbled to find out the number of ones that exist. I mean, it's really, thank you everyone who's listening. It means a lot to us that come and do this recording, for an hour whenever we can, week after week. So thank y'all, and thank y'all for showing up on the show. Ricky may pop in later. You know how he floated in, toward midway through the segment. I think he's on the schedule for tonight. We'll see.
He just likes to put the ad in Addington when it comes into coming to the show later.
We didn't get to talk a lot about the ATC, so I want to talk. We'll do a little bit of preamble here, and then we'll put the segment in from Dave, and then we'll talk about the ATC coming up. Jim, it's your first time for the ATC this year.
Yeah, it was. I was a last-minute addition to the Best in Faction podcast team, and they asked me about a month and a half, I think about 2 months out of the event, which doesn't sound like it's that long, but I think with ATC, the logistics of trying to organize a team is pretty short notice. I happily accepted. I'd actually tried to organize a team with Scary previously, but failed miserably.
I got Scary this year.
Yeah, so I'm glad it worked out. He got to go. We were the only ones from the kind of ETC group that was interested, so I was very happy to go this year.
He pulled down.
Excited to.
Yeah, Best Drukari.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, but we'll definitely talk about that in just a little bit. Gen Con is this weekend. We're actually recording this on the eve that I'm going to Gen Con. We're going to record the show. I'm going to immediately pack up the laptop and then edit it when I'm on the plane or in Indianapolis. I don't know if you guys have been to or heard about Gen Con, but it is a giant board game convention. It's a convention based around gaming, but one of the things that I appreciated about it is wall to wall board gaming and people seeing new games, vendors debuting their brand new stuffs, or have their mock-ups of what's coming out later in the year or next year or whatever. It is rich with that nerd feel that I love.
Well, my favorite thing to watch out of the Gen Con weekend is the cool kind of terrain concepts that they come out with. There's a lot of places that preview new D&D related terrain stuff that I just think, I'm going to cannibalize that and that and that. There's a lot of really cool stuff that comes out of there.
I love playing the Battletech pods. They had those there. Last year was my first year. Kind of went on a spur-of-the-moment trip, and so I put it on the must-attend things for this year. Thankfully, I'm able to go.
I wish I had more time to play non-40k games. Sometimes I feel like I have to pick and choose, and especially some of these more complex games that take maybe a few sessions to really get into. I always feel like I'm giving up valuable painting time or valuable playing 40k time to play them. And so definitely cool though that there's so many games out there. And it seems like it's having a bit of a renaissance too, the whole kind of D&D and gaming and board gaming culture. So that seems really cool.
What it's given us is tons of cool products. Like we got all kind of cool looking dice now that used to. I mean, there were some neat dice, and everyone had their favorite dice set or something, but they were kind of few and far between. What I like is just the sheer volume of interesting dice that you can pick up. Things like Chris was talking about, better terrain, things you can repurpose for stuff that we do. And I think, Jim, that's actually a really cool, almost like topic for a show, is finding that balance between all the games you want to play as to the ones that you have to play.
Yeah,
oh boy, I could learn something from that.
Well, you bring up a good point. It's like, games like Gloomhaven. I am like dying to try to play Gloomhaven because I hear it's a campaign-based, like miniature heavy board game, but I've never even cracked the rulebook on it because do I do that or do I digest the Chaos Space Marine Codex?
One thing GW's done really well the last 2 years is kind of try to keep with all the side games that they've released, they've kind of tried to keep people in their ecosystem. So it's really hard to even if you do have that craving for like a short board game or a short 1 hour type game, it's like, well, GW has 6 to 8 games themselves that it's like. And it's almost like, well, why would I play these non-GW games when I can play these GW games and get free models and get and then, it's the same kind of things that you like about the GW hobby. So even just trying to break out of the GW ecosystem can be hard sometimes.
I was going to say that.
I mean, it's impossible to stay in the ecosystem between the books and the models, the limited edition stuff. All of the different spin-off board games and things that come out from GW products, like there are still things like I am still hunting down a copy of 40k Munchkin.
Oh, nice.
I had a copy of Blackstone Fortress that sat on my shelf in the shrink wrap for a good 4 months. Then I was finally like, all right, I'm never going to open this. Time for it to go.
But you want those Chaos Cultists.
Yeah, I know.
That makes that choice easy for me.
And there's a bunch of cool Imperial stuff in there too. I mean, it's the level of miniatures does not disappoint, and we already saw like on the community page that they're going to give us some more information on it's not Combat Patrol. There's that they debuted
Combat
it,
Arena.
Yeah, at the Toy Fair or whatever several months ago, and I've been jonesing for a couple of those models ever since.
Some of the European kind of one boxer.
Yeah, I think it's going. You're right. I was about to say that GW is like living rent free in our brains, but we know how much these models cost.
Well, and then there's the Eisenhorn television series that's in pre-production right now. Like that just kind of I've thought that if they were to adapt any 40k series into a show, that it should be Eisenhorn, and I'm glad that I was right. And it's an excellent book series to read if you haven't read it already. It's going to be really hard to kind of match the imagination with how that was written, but man, like it's infiltrating everywhere now.
Dude, I know people that have never touched a 40k model that have read those books and love them.
I just recently, probably about 3 months ago, re-listened to all the audiobooks through Audible. I actually have the original paperbacks.
Oh, those are so good.
But I bought all 3 audiobooks and then re-listened to them in like 4 days.
Are they done well with the narration and stuff?
Isn't that Jonathan Keeble the one who's reading that, or is it Toby Longworth?
I'm not 100%, but I mean both of them are incredible, and I always forgot. Like there's certain parts of that book, and I won't spoil anything for those of you who haven't read it. It's been out for 15 years at this point, but
no spoilers.
There's certain parts
There's a TV show coming out. I don't want to. I don't know.
That give me chills when I listen to them, and hearing someone kind of read it back to you is like, it's like, man, this is good. Definitely worth picking up.
Let's take a quick break. I'm going to find Ricky. We're going to play that segment with me and Dave, and then we'll come back and talk some 40k stuff with these guys.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, welcome to a Community Spotlight segment. I'm Paul, your host. I'm joined tonight by Dave Norquist.
Hey, how's it going?
Mini Wargaming Dave.
You know what? I'm so glad that I could be on the show. I love podcasts. I recently got into them, and I'm actually going to start a podcast of my own. think I'm just making the Shrine of Chaos into a podcast, to be absolutely honest. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Man, thanks for joining me. I want to talk about, you guys have got a lot going on with everything you're doing. It's very exciting. We talked a little bit about it in the pre-show. I want to help folks get directed to that because you've got some amazing stuff planned.
Yeah, absolutely. We recently had the grand opening of the Mini Wargaming Bunker, which is the big location that we've been working on the past couple of years of construction renovation of an old flower shop in Welland, Ontario, Canada. 11,300 square foot building, and we've converted it into filming studios and tournament gaming hall and bedrooms.
Yeah, I was going to admit, it's more than just a studio. I mean, it is a destination now.
Absolutely, yeah. There's 6 themed gaming studios that you can come and participate in battles and battle reports, kind of like on the regular. And then in addition to this, we are planning different events that you can also participate in. And those are unique. They will also be part of the content, but they will be different than the regular bat reps that we'll be putting out.
You said your grand opening, my buddy Doug from Table War was up there.
Doug absolutely was. He was actually up for a couple weeks. He came up to the grand opening, the week of the grand opening, and then he stayed for a week after that, and he and I filmed a special narrative campaign written by a black library author, Miles Drake, and it was fantastic. He fielded his orcs, I fielded my blood angels, I dusted them off, I was able to field them on the battlefield, and we had regular sized games, kill team sized games, and it was awesome because Doug's an artist, and he has cool conversions on his minis, and I had some conversions made up for my army as well, and we just completely fun narrative battles and super close games, and it's actually all been released. It's The Angel and the Serpent. That's the name of it. It's a 40k narrative campaign and super fun.
Dude, he's such a great guy. You've made him a movie star, so he's going to be absolutely insufferable.
Yeah, he happened to be a character in my featured film. Yes, he was. He was the Wandering Foot Traveler.
No, Doug is absolutely awesome. He's a pleasure to play. He's like low-key one of the best tournament players you're ever going to encounter.
Did you just call him Loki?
Yeah, maybe I did, right? Maybe that was a subtle thing. No, he's such an easygoing guy, but yet, he's incredibly accomplished as a player. And to see that he's a part of, all this narrative stuff, I know he runs some stuff out, in his local environment, basically a big champion in his own area. It's just cool to see him out and about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, ever since the film, because that's how I met him, we've been brothers. I just didn't even realize that this guy existed on the other side of the continent. So, he's awesome. You kind of love him. He's the kind of guy where when you meet him, you feel like you've known him for years.
But we got to see a lot of pictures of the grand opening of the bunker and, all themed rooms. Can you tell us a little bit about the space up there?
Yeah. So the bedrooms, each of them are themed. There's 5 bedrooms. We have anywhere from 2 people that can stay per room to 4 people that can stay in a room. We have barracks. We have an Imperial Officer Suite. We have a Space Wolf themed room and a 40k Orc themed room and a Age of Sigmar themed room. It's all very immersive, right? So you come and you feel like you're part of the world of Warhammer when you're staying in one of the rooms. That's the whole idea. That's the goal.
And you have props. It's not just stuff on the walls. There are the themed walls. It is pretty immersive. There's artifacts from the world in there.
Absolutely, yeah. We have banners. We have a full Sister of Battle, armed and equipped and war geared, and she greets you on the way out. And it's crazy. We're actually we got some really high end 3D printed weapons that just came in recently, and these are relics, man. I tell you, they're the best I've ever seen. They're fantastic. And
they look cool, especially attracted to like an orc weapon I saw.
Yeah, that one that you're thinking of, that's in the Orc studio, and that's a commie rocket, and that looks awesome. It looks legit. That one was created when we were building the studios, and that's a lot of fun. A lot of people like to take it off the wall and take selfies with that one because it looks super cool.
I can understand that, but you didn't just build this to film games, and you've now. I wasn't kidding about being a destination. You guys have, I think like actual like events and weekends and week-long things in the works.
Yeah, we do. So right now it's a combination of events that we run, events that the gaming store, which is Max Aggression Gaming, we lease that store space out to them. They hold their events twice a month, their tournaments, their ITC tournaments. And then there's also third party, whoever come in, they can also run their own private events. And so it's a combination of all three. But for the events that we hold, it's going to be so many different shapes and sizes. That's going to look like so many different things. It's going to look like a kill team event, or it's going to look like a Gorka Morka event, which is actually, that's coming up in October or Orktober. I haven't announced that yet. I did it last year. I did it for the first time with Matt, Cody Rue, and Mike. And that was so much fun, man. Like, I'm not an orc player, but I played Gorka Morka, and it's a completely different game system.
Like actual rules from Gorka Morka? I remember that. Straight
up Gorka Morka rules, and it was a blast. I fielded bikers, and it's the weakest army, but I didn't care because I bought a motorcycle in real life, and I wanted to field bikers. And it was just fun. Just fun being fast and just goofy. And this year, what I plan on doing is, because it's myself and it's Luca, so we're running it this year, and I'm going to open it up to a bunch of wargamers to come up for a week, and we're going to film a number of episodes. And my war band is going to be the Goth Rockers, because they actually came up and they played for the grand opening. For people that don't know, the Goth Rockers, I mean, they're very popular. A lot of people know them, but for those who don't know, they're the orc band, the 40k orc band that play death metal music, and they're amazing. They're awesome. I mean, they're at Adepticon. They're at all the big places.
They're fully costumes. Like, they're fully those direct orcs playing music.
That's right. Yeah. And they actually have their own album. Like, it's awesome. They sell their own swag. Like, they're a legit rock band. So they came up for the grand opening. They actually came up and visited many months ago. And I was thinking of asking them to come to the grand opening. And Ted, he's the lead orc singer. He was thinking of asking me coming to the grand opening. And so it looks like the psychic powers were working at the same time.
Power of the Wog, man.
That's right. That's right. So he came up, and so I asked him, actually, when he was here, I invited him and the band over to my house afterwards for barbecue. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, I plan on doing Gorka Morka this coming October. Would it be cool if my war band was called the Goth Rockers, and the members of my war band were actually you guys, and the weapons were your instruments? So the bass guitar could be the flamer, and, you know, the drummer could have stick bombs, and you know, and so forth. I think that'd be super cool. And they're actually named after you guys, and they thought it was totally dope. They loved it. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And using their theme music for, like, the intro when they enter the battlefield. I think that'd be super fun.
Cool. That is totally cool.
Yeah, so I can't wait to do that. And so that's going to happen in October. I haven't announced it yet. It'll be sometime in October. It'll be for 5 days. And I haven't decided on the amount of players that can participate in it, because I'm just trying to think of the logistics for how many players there could be. Because last year there was 4, 2 of which were content producers, and we produced a good number of battle reports out of it. And so, I mean, it could just be 2 players.
But you're going to get 5 days of experience. Like, you plan on it being something that's a string of events over the course of those series of days.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm thinking what it might be is a combination. Like, I think I'm going to open it up to a number of players, and that it'll be a combination of people playing in the tournament hall and also cycling through the studios and filming. And so they'll get a chance to actually have their warband showcased in a bat rep, and whoever makes it at the very end will be kind of playing off against the other warbands that are high in teeth, that have the most teeth. And so I think that would work out that way. So I think that would be best, because I want to see a lot of WOG action. I want to see a lot of death and carnage, because that's what Korn wants.
I dig it. And playing like retro Gorka Morka on you guys' quality, high end, like modern terrain. I mean, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, and I mean, we have, as much as they have the missions, which we'll use, we're going to use some custom ones too. Like, there's got to be the race. We have to reenact the race, because that was just super fun doing that. Like, can you imagine like 10 players just racing? Just having one truck in the race, and then whoever wins the race is, man, there's just so much carnage. It's just so much fun.
And with the modern figures too. I mean, like the resources for making what are the custom vehicles and your custom mobs and stuff is a lot better now than it was then. And we thought it was cool then.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. And then you got your Drakestas and your shock jumps, and your war trikes and all that, right? Like, you can have the new vehicles that you can convert up, and heck, even just use as your trucks or as your war vehicles. So I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Awesome way to embrace the WOG. I recently got into orcs myself. Probably, I guess, after their last codex. I mean, it's a bit of a process when you started an orc army from scratch.
Yeah,
you got to really like it.
Absolutely. And, that actually reminds me of something that I've recently started. I started this series called Kid Hammer, and that's where I'm playing games with my kids, and I'm playing 40k with my kids. I have 3 kids, a daughter and 2 sons, and they're 10, 8, and 5. And I'm showing them how to play 40k for the first time, right? And I'm doing it in small size battles and kind of bite-sized battles. And my son Ryan, the 5-year-old, he gravitated towards the orcs. That's his personality. It was complete rule of cool. He looked at the orc models and he said, "Daddy, what's that?" I said, "Oh, that's a that's a Gorkanaut." He's like, "Oh, Gorkanaut, I want to use that one." And it was just the best feeling because his smile was so big looking at this awesome orc model that he had never seen before. And that's rule of cool in action right there. Yeah. He just gravitated toward it. Like, out of all the armies that we have at his disposal, that's what he chose.
Hey, no, it's made to be then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's pretty neat. So they seem to enjoy it. I mean,
yeah, they're loving it. And I said, because I actually schedule that as a day of work, and it's the summertime, the kids are home, and so I said, okay, all right, kids, we're gonna do Kid Hammer today, and they got excited, right? And I actually took them because I live about 2 minutes away from the studio. I'm very lucky that I live very close to work, literally 2 minutes away. And I took them one by one. So when one was done, I'd bring them home and I'd bring the next one. And they were excited for Kid Hammer Day. And I've done that twice. So I filmed 6 bat reps with them.
Oh, that's so neat, man. I've got a young one as well. He's 7, but he's been kind of playing ever since he was 5 or so. When I say playing, we don't stick hard to the rules. We roll dice, we roll to hit, we roll to wound, we roll armor saves.
Yes.
But anything made its way into the battle. He turned like the dice bag into some monster that would creep in from the side of the table. I mean, like, it's just the things you can do, just to have him experience in the game. I really love it. So really cool to see other people doing it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like just the simple mechanics of moving and shooting and attacking, and that's I think that's right there is just showing them the basics.
Little die rollers making up their own stories. I mean, that's right. It's neat.
That's right.
Anyways, the next generation, I think always doing what you can to encourage those interests.
Yeah, and my other son, Morgan, he's my 8-year-old. He saw a mastodon. I had never fielded one before, and so he looked at it and he's like, "Daddy, what is that tank?" Because the first battle he chose Space Wolves, right? Again, rule of cool. He just looked at it. He wanted Space Wolves, and being of partial Nordic descent, I loved that. I thought it was awesome, and I certainly encouraged that. He didn't play Tau, so I definitely encouraged the Space Wolves, and that's what I wanted. And he looked at the Mastodon, and so we made up a scenario, right, where he had to drive from one end to the other, and on the other end there was a wolf, and we named him Wolverine, and he had to save Wolverine. And there was a whole bunch of Hellbrutes that he had to get through, right? And so he was just bashing his way through all these Hellbrutes to get to Wolverine so he could save him, pick him up, and so he can ride the Mastodon.
That is very Space Wolfy.
Yes.
That's incredibly it. So you play Chaos, for those who may not know.
I do, yes.
Have they expressed any chaotic interest?
Yes, indeed. My daughter, Dana, who's 10, she gravitated to the Alpha Legion because she saw the paint scheme and she said, "Daddy, what are these pretty models?" Actually, that's actually what she said. I'm like, "Well, let me tell you, sweetheart, those are Alpha Legion." And she proceeded to choose her army. And she chose a sorcerer, and she actually, it's funny because she got all the models together. She just got a couple squads of, Chaos Space Marines and Rhinos and, the pretty colors and everything, and the sorcerer. And then she asked me, she's like, "Daddy, how come there's no girls?" And I said, "Well, I mean, you could field some girls if you want. There's Sisters of Battle, and there's, Harlequins and Eldar, and I said, well, why don't we do this? You like the sorcerer, right?" She's like, "Yeah." "Okay, well, we're going to Mark of Day this. I'm going to teach you Mark of Day." And so we actually grabbed an AOS model. And so there's an AOS model that was also kind of like a sorceress-looking model.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you which faction it was from. But it looked like a chaotic sorceress with the Mark of Nurgle, because that's what it was. And that's what she used as the leader of her army. So she was happy with that.
There you go.
Yeah, and that was great. And so she's now fielded the Alpha Legion twice. And that's her army. She plays Chaos Space Marines. I'm cool. So happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope they continue to enjoy it, and it helps fuel other things. Even if it doesn't end up being, future Warhammer players, that enjoyment of gaming and rolling dice, I think it's something they can take with them forever.
Yeah, I think so. And, if anything, it's just creating good memories, right? It's like, I remember when I was young playing Warhammer with Daddy, like, if anything, if it does that, Also, I put a poll on Facebook too, and I put a post out. And I said, I'm doing the series with my kids. Question, who has kids out there? Another question, who would want to watch this series? And so there was a good amount of positive response from it that people are like, yes, I have a kid. I have a 7-year-old. I have a 5-year-old. I have a 10-year-old. And yes, I would watch this with them, and I've been playing games already with them. We would love this. And so there was a lot of good positive response from it. So my plan is to cache up a whole bunch of episodes first, and then start to release them on like a kind of like a pseudo weekly basis, so that there's a good amount of like I'll do like a season of it, right? Instead of, because I originally thought, okay, I'm going to film a couple and then post it, but the thing is, I might not get to another filming for another couple of weeks. I just didn't want it to kind of go in between. I wanted to have a good, consistent amount of release schedule.
So when they walk into the studio, is it like an amusement park to them? I mean, because again, I know we were talking about how like fully decked out all the stuff is. I bet it looks even. I mean, we're big kids when it comes to looking at some of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think when they grow older, they will certainly understand and appreciate more so and kind of get what it is more, right? Like right now, they see the studios and the decorations and they think it's cool, right? And especially the Underhive studio, the Necromunda studio, because it has this pipe ladder built into the wall, and so they like to climb on that. And in the Orc studio, there's this siren light that I've installed, and it goes off because it's the don't press that button, and they think that's fun too. And so, there's like fun factor, right, for a kid. I think there's a lot of eye candy. So there's that. Just the fact that the rooms look different, right? But when they grow older, then they can actually get what it's doing, what it's from, and what the game is. And
you guys are pushing limits with this stuff. Now, you're not just running wargame events or the idea of that. You've got some other things planned that are like real trendy right now.
Yeah. So with that, there's an immersive narrative campaign experience, and I think that's what you're alluding to there. And that's actually something that's coming up in September. And that is Resident Evil themed. And so I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. I have been for over 20 years. I played the first game in 1996.
When that ceiling started coming down, like the first room, like the dog jumping out of the window didn't scare me as much as when you get locked in that next room and the ceiling starts to come down.
That's right, the square room.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm like looking around for an exit in the room I'm playing the game in,
The Jill sandwich room. Yeah, that game, that was a big part of my childhood, adolescence, growing up experience. It sounds weird, but I played it a lot, right? I played all the games a lot. And so just a big fan of the series, more particularly the video games.
You're among friends. It doesn't sound weird that you played a lot of video games. It's fine.
I suppose that's true, right? I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I wanted to combine a few loves. One was Resident Evil, another one was 40k, and another one was acting and theatrics, because I love that. I love movies, and I love film, and I love acting. And so what I've done is I've crafted a campaign specific to just a small handful of people, 5 people. I've already actually released this on Eventbrite, and there's 5 slots that I've made available, and 4 of them are already taken up. And what it is people, they come for a week and they participate as one of the STARS members in the campaign. And so it uses the 40k rules, but they are the Resident Evil characters in the Resident Evil world. So in the 40k universe, it takes place on a frontier world, because in the lore, frontier worlds are kind of like, they could be anything type of worlds, right? So let's have an alternate reality Raccoon City world in the 40k universe. So that's kind of the excuse there for how it can fit within the 40k universe. And using the base rules for 40k with some custom rules added onto it, because people represent one character on the battlefield, and they upgrade as they go, and there will be lockers and chests and crates that they open along the way. And I've had custom cards made up so that they can find them and add them to their characters. And they're a combination of items and war gear and weapons, which use 40k stats for the weapons. Like there's the Magnum, there's the Beretta, there's the shotgun, but they use 40k stats for it. And they are the characters, the original STARS members. Now, in addition to this, in addition to actually playing on the tabletop, they will be role-playing. That's a partial experience as well, because in 40k you don't really role-play, you just kind of miniature war game, right? So there's going to be role-playing aspects to this as well. We'll be in character. And outside of this, there will be live action role play, in that everything in the bunker is actually in play except for the bathrooms. So everything. I actually had to disclaimer that because bathroom's a bathroom. That's a safe place, right? But
yeah, fair enough. No, I get it.
Literally everywhere else, including the bedrooms, is in play. So at 3 a.m., a zombie could burst into your room and make noise and drop a clue and then walk out, and then that clue can help you in your next mission. And so it's all in play at any time. You don't know when something is going to happen. And in addition to this, I've gotten Wargamer Girl to be Jill Valentine. So she's actually Jill Valentine. And we went through the bunker and we filmed dozens of hidden messages that the players will receive every morning on their smart TVs, because every bunker bedroom has a smart TV.
Oh, wow.
And so they receive messages from Jill, right? And here's an example message. It'd be like, she's like specifically talking to certain people. So she'd be like, Barry, I left you some supplies at locker number 7. The code to the locker is on the side of the vending machine. I hope this helps you in your mission today. And so that player then has to go to the locker and has to figure out the code and open it up, and they see what they find in there, and they're gonna find a sealed envelope, which will have some sort of war gear or weapon or whatever it might be, which they can attach to their character. That'll help them in the mission for that day. And that's a part of the experience too. So it's an immersive narrative campaign experience. It's more so an experience than it is a straight up game. So there's a lot of elements at play there.
But then there's some gameplay involved, right? I mean, does this all lead to like a tabletop game? How was it? Do you see it like, or is it going to lead to a one game a day? Is it a game in the morning? I mean, like how does it all link together?
So it's going to be a 10 episode series. So 2 games will be filmed each day. And they're kind of organic in nature, because there's definitely an objective and there's a narrative per mission, but the way in which the players achieve the objective is going to be completely up to them. And there's actually another narrative campaign that I did in the wintertime, which was a Fallout 40k narrative campaign, because I love Fallout. I love the video game Fallout, and have loved it for a number of years. And that was kind of the guinea pig campaign test. And I did that with a couple players. And it was awesome. It was well received by the audience. It was a new concept. I just wanted to try it out as a litmus test to see if the audience would like it and if it could actually work. And it was fantastic. I haven't had as much fun doing a campaign in a long time than I've had doing that one, because it was just so different. And there was this mechanic that I instituted, which was a 12-inch fog of war. So every movement they would move, and there weren't turns like a regular game of 40k, right? They would just simply move until an enemy was revealed, and then the combat round would ensue, and then you'd fight the enemy, and then it would kind of go back to regular gameplay, kind of like Zelda. You remember Zelda, where you travel around, and like the same concept, right? And it was awesome because the players were constantly on edge because they didn't know what they were going to run into, and they couldn't see past 12 inches on the terrain board, and it was awesome. And so that's what I want to do. I want to kind of create this feeling of unease and tension and constant amber, where people just don't know what to expect and they don't know what's going to pop out at them, which will lend itself perfully to Resident Evil.
Oh man, that sounds cool. You guys are really blowing the doors off of what you can do with your own space.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have this playground, as you said, right? Like, we have this kind of facility that we're able to mold into kind of whatever we want it to, right? Yes, there's the filming of the battle reports, which won't stop. That's going to be a constant. That's our meat and potatoes. We'll continue to do that, and the narrative campaigns. But there's other things that we can try. There's other things that we can experience and test out. And if it's something that the audience likes, if it's something that people want to participate in, actually come up and stay at the bunker and play in, I mean, that's something that we'll do for years to come.
Well, some of the things you're describing are, I guess, effects and things that people do in like escape rooms now.
Yeah. I've seen escape rooms where there are live actors that participate in that, like they are part of the escape room, right? And speaking of escape rooms, that's also part of the experience of the bunker. And I've actually partnered with a local university to help with the design of the mechanics and the puzzles of the escape rooms, which will be built at the mini Wargaming bunker, because we have this space underneath the gaming store, and it's perfect because it's already divided up into 5 small rooms, and that lends itself perfectly to an escape room. And
you're going to be gaming themed, going to be Warhammer themed?
Absolutely. I ran a poll for it, and the number 1 response was Space Hulk. So it's going to be a Space Hulk themed escape room. And I've actually commissioned Miles Drake, he's a Black Library author, to help write the narrative behind the story of the escape room, because that's the common theme with all escape rooms, is that they have some sort of story attached to it. and you're achieving something, you're going through the adventure, and there's some sort of backstory to it every time. That's what I've noticed. That's a common denominator. All the puzzles are always different, the mechanics are different, there's some similarities, but the common thing amongst every single escape room is that there is a story.
So how do people get some information on this? How do they participate? Is there a schedule they can look at? They can plan for, maybe if they can't get it this year, they can get on the list for next year? Like, how do they arrange all that?
The list for events,
being in any of these things, like how do they participate in any of the stuff you're describing?
So they can go to miniwargaming.com/challenge, and that'll show them all of the different events that are coming up. They could also go to miniwargaming.com/bunker, or they can just simply follow the Mini Wargaming Facebook page, and we constantly post when things are coming up. We also have a specific Mini Wargaming Bunker Facebook page that shows the events that are coming up. And so they're kind of advertised everywhere all the time. It's very easy for people to see it once they're up and running. But that's the thing. They have to be kind of launched in order for people to see them, because right now, there's things in the background, right? Like the Resident Evil campaign is up and running and it's live, so people can find that one because there's one spot left, literally one spot left as we're talking right now.
Maybe not by the time we release this, but still check. People still check if you're interested.
Yeah, because what actually inspired that one was D&D in a Castle. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But it's basically an experience event where you play Dungeons and Dragons in a castle in Europe by a renowned dungeon master, and it's an immersive experience. And so that inspired me to do something similar with 40k and with another lore that I love, which is Resident Evil. Mm-hmm. So, because there's already, in the gaming industry, not just the miniature wargaming industry, but in the gaming industry in general, there's this type of experience that is craved. And I think that this is definitely the way in which entertainment is moving. It's moving into the realm of an experience more than just kind of sitting in your room and playing. Yeah, right?
You're participating with more than just one or two senses. You're in it.
That's right. Yeah, because it's a different form of escapism. You go to movies or you play games with your friends. You play Warhammer, or you play role playing games, or you do these immersive campaigns that are, it's a hybrid. It's a combination of all of it, and it's combining a bunch of different loves. And
but before
I'd be curious to see how it turns out.
Yeah, before the show, you'd hinted about a couple of these things that we were going to talk about, but I had no idea was that this elaborate. This is awesome.
Thank you.
You brought up one other thing that still kind of put me on my back foot.
What was that?
This the Chaos Death Watch campaign. What's
Yes. Okay. So now I have to credit the idea of, so a good friend of mine, Taylor, he has a YouTube channel, For Whom the Die Rolls. And, we were talking, I was actually driving home from, Buffalo, and see, I'm a people person, right? So if I go more than 5 minutes without talking to someone, I start to get lonely. So I give him a phone call. And I say, "Hey, Taylor, what's up?" And we're just talking as I'm driving. And he just like randomly out of the blue says, "You know what, Dave? You should do a Chaos Deathwatch campaign." And that was like an explosion of sparks in my brain when he said that, because Deathwatch is fun and Chaos is my life. And so why didn't I think of this before? And so this is something that I'm doing. And once again, I've commissioned Miles Drake, the Black Library author, to do the narrative behind it, because he's just phenomenal. Like, everything that he writes is gold.
When you can link that stuff, because it helps people, you get into it, you get little nuggets of lore, and you get to link them to some things you're actually going to do, and you become emotionally attached to certain events happening or whatever figures you're moving around. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So that's going to be that's probably going to be I want to say November. I'm shooting for November for that one. That'll be a multiplayer event as well. People will come with their Chaos Deathwatch. There's custom rules per legion that they have. They can have a hybrid of different models within their legion. And there's a story arc. And just to kind of drop a couple hints there, the story surrounds Abaddon and his search for the Gate of Moloch. And for those of us who are unfamiliar with this, it's basically where the Emperor gained his power from, and where Horus also gained his power from.
It's a big moment in a couple of the stories.
Yeah. And so basically Abaddon wants to find it. He wants the same power, and whichever of the Chaos Deathwatch warbands find it and tell him where it is. I guess the idea there is, do they tell him or do they want this power for themselves? And that remains to be seen.
The drama.
The drama, right? Yeah. So of course, it's like, which is it going to be? And I've also recently gotten to the habit of commissioning Kurt Metz to do the illustrations for the campaign intros. And Kurt Metz, for those of us who don't know, on DeviantArt, you can see a lot of his artwork on there. I would say he's prolific in the 40k community with his awesome artwork that he's created. If you search for him on DeviantArt, Kurt Metz, and that's K-U-R-T, Metz, you'll see his amazing artwork. It's a comic book style artwork that is kind of like the G.I. Joe style that, as a kid I grew up on. And it's just amazing, right? And so I've commissioned him to do a number of different things so far. And once again, this is another one that I'm commissioning him to do just because it adds so much more authenticity to the campaign. I did it for the Angel and the Serpent with Doug with that campaign, and that's his artwork there for the intro. And that'll be something that I'll continue to do for a while because he's awesome. I will try to link as much as as I can that we talked about in the show notes for people to kind of follow along if they would like to, and check out some of the things, that the events where they can find the challenge link and when they can find some of this art and links to the author's stuff. This would be fun to follow along with. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a confession to make, and
here it comes.
I apologize. I'm kind of going everywhere. Well, this is how I think. It's very chaotic. So it's all over the place. So from time to time, I get into these like fitness challenges, and I'm by no means a guy who is an athlete or anything like that. I just like to do it because of health, and I want to look good for confidence, and
whatever,
whatever
works. Moving.
That's right. And so, I in the past I've done different things, and I've lost a bunch of weight, and then I've gained some back, and then I've lost it again and gained it back. And so right now I'm feeling at the point where I need to do another challenge. And so as a Chaos player, my favorite Chaos god is Khorne. And so on August 8th, which is 8/8, I'm going to start a challenge, and it's going to be the Khorne challenge, and it's just going to be all 8s. Okay. Like the first goal will be exercise 8 days in a row. And another goal will be lose 8 pounds. And another goal will be lose 8% body fat. And another goal will be do 88 push-ups.
So do 8 push-ups every time you roll a 6 or something.
And so there's going to be a series of these within the challenge, and I'll post this. And I need to do this. I need that public accountability in order to motivate myself to do it. And it certainly helps me a lot when I do that. Because, I don't, the one thing about Khorne is that he's honorable and he does what he says. So, if I submit this challenge, then I'll do what I say.
Especially if you post it. Because, I believe I use this with painting all the time. Like, my Twitter, Warmaster_TPM, and my Instagram, @FightsWithDice, is all hobby stuff. And, and I post the stuff up there so people, see it. And then, I have to finish it. I have to post a work in progress, and then I have to see it through because, we're all in this together. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's a group effort at that point.
Yeah, dude. Well, it was great catching up. I'm really glad I got to hear about a lot of the stuff going on. And hopefully, we can catch up again before too long so you can tell me how some of this stuff went.
Yeah.
And the new stuff.
Absolutely.
I'd love to be on again. On new stuff.
Yeah. It's constant new stuff.
Well, I'm a huge fan of y'all's channel. You're certainly great ambassadors of the hobby. And yeah, man, thanks a lot for coming on with me. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we wrap this up?
Honestly, just a big thank you to the viewers, to the listeners, to everyone who supports us, because without that, we don't exist. Every day I'm very grateful for that. And I recognize that I'm very fortunate in doing what I do. And I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of the viewers, especially the Vault members, because that's how we sustain ourselves as a business. So just thank you.
Well, it pours through the quality of what you do, and it's entertaining and engaging, and appreciate getting the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We're sponsored by Fermaterra. With their sturdy, lightweight and portable tables, you can make war anywhere. Please visit them at www.fermaterra.com.
Hey everybody, we are back. I hope you enjoyed that segment with the mini Wargaming Dave. I know I did a good time recording it. I want to talk about the ATC. It happened a couple weeks ago. Spoiler, I didn't win. My team didn't come anywhere close to winning. But we still had a great time.
Dave is a really hilarious guy to talk to. He just kind of jumps up, acts strange and things. But he's also like, if you sit and you talk to him for a bit, he's also very thoughtful, and it creates interesting conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Ricky and Jim, you guys were at the ATC. Ricky, not your first time. Jim, it was your first time.
Mm-hmm. It was the first year I went as part of the BIFWAD team. I think I said that earlier. Definitely want to go back, and I kind of with a little bit more preparation for next year, but I had a great time. The format is the 3 days of gaming. I really liked having the game spread out over 3 days. I think it allowed us to kind of have a little bit more fun, I guess, because we didn't have these super long days, and we weren't just totally drained at the end of each day, so we were able to kind of enjoy ourselves a little bit more, whereas sometimes if you're trying to cram 6 games into 2 days, it can be super, super tiring.
The experience of the ATC with the matching and how the whole pregame rituals, with the pairing up of the list is actually kind of stressful. I mean, in a good way, but I like having those the little bit of extra time during the rounds, being able to space it out and not be so just redlined at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, for me, the pairing is the hardest and definitely the worst part of ATC for me because, every year I've gone, I think I've been on your team every year I've gone except this year. And so you always handled that part, and I just had to worry about my piece of the pie. And this year, everyone on my team was wanting to do what I always did, which is worry about their piece of the pie. And then I had to come up with the pairings. I was like, I am not the guy that should be doing this. So once we got to just playing, I was having a blast. But those pairings was always our whole team standing around going, I think this will be a good pairing. Let's go this route.
Well, even when you feel like you're doing well, I think you always feel like you're just one matchup away from extinction.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got every pairing you wanted. As soon as you lose the game, you're like, I should have got paired with that guy. Which is, I think, is always the most hilarious part of ATC is it doesn't matter what opponent you get out of that team. If you lose the game, you knew you should have got that other guy, right? Because it's
right.
The captain
for sure that you're the one that
I could have beat him.
Yeah.
I could have beat him, but you messed me up in the pairings. It's
for sure.
That seems to be half of ATC is complaining to your captain about your pairings.
Just get good.
Is that the part where you say get good?
Yeah.
Get good. You guys have been telling me that for years, and it hasn't worked yet. So I think y'all might as well let that one
just
go.
Let it go.
Yeah, it's not happening at this point.
Look, the Dark Angels will shine again, Ricky.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, if we're going to go down that road, I don't think the Dark Angels are bad. I just think Gilliman makes Ultramarines so good that Dark Angels, you're never going to shine until your army's painted blue, I think.
If you follow the Primaris Lieutenant on Twitter, I mean, the pictures are all around now, but you would have seen some blurry reinforcement pictures behind there.
I honestly hope that somebody at GW just took a Predator or something and just glued some Transformers bits or something onto the side of that and put it back there just to troll people. Because that, to me, is hilarious. Because everybody... It's like everybody's trying to figure out where the second gunman on the grassy knoll is. It's these grainy pictures like somebody on Ancient Aliens would use to try to prove UFOs exist, and they're trying to say that this is the new Razorback for a Primaris. I'm still pretty much convinced that that's just a Razorback on a flight stand, but
Razorback / transport / drop pod /
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll know soon enough.
Yeah. Then typically, I don't know what the schedule is, but once you start seeing stuff like that, then it's not too far off from getting the full reveal.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited. So at the ATC, how we did the pairings this year, and maybe got a little bit more refined from maybe the last year than we did it. As soon as we get the list, we'd hand the list out to everyone on the team, and our goal was to write down on their list whoever was reviewing that list, what the best secondary picks were against that list. That plan broke down in the second round when we didn't do it.
Because that sounds like a great idea. That is like some team meeting level stuff. Guys, get on Skype. We're going to talk this out 3 weeks prior. We're going to come up with our plan. You're going to do this, 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 and this, and then alcohol gets involved usually. But I admire the attempt, and that's a good idea.
It felt brilliant.
What happened? Did y'all just forget to do it?
No,
or were you running
okay. We had a stumble in round one. We actually played in round one. We played a team that we played in the 2 previous years that they had been there, and typically we come out ahead against these guys. But this year they got us, and it was. I mean, it wasn't a blow to morale. Everyone on my team is tournament players. You roll with the punches. Stuff happens even in the best laid plans or whatever. But then in round 2, we thinking, okay, we had a stumble. We're gonna like cruise into submarine mode and everything's gonna be fine. Round 2, who did we get paired up against? Beast Coast, who had also stumbled in round 1.
This is fine.
And then we're 1 point on the bad side from being a draw. With that team. I mean, all the matches, all the games went fine. It was a slobber knocker. I mean, it's a round you would have easily or wanted to play in the final round, for finals. But it's a good matchup against good players. And we just, beat each other to death essentially, and they came out on top.
It's one of those where people say, "Oh, well, how'd you do?" And you go, "I had fun."
We did. I mean, we really did, but it wasn't. It was like after that, I'm like, wow, okay. So then it was like, you know what? Forget this right and secondaries. Because the pressure is way off at this point.
Yeah. Well, our best round was round 2, believe it or not, and that was because we had a bye. So we killed bye. They probably won't even show up next year.
You can walk around, look at all the shops that were there.
Well, we lucked up because it was the second round on day 1, right? So that was the end of our day. So we came in, played 1 game, and then went out to dinner, had a great night.
Cool.
I took a nap. So if you're going to get a bye, having the bye in the last game of the day is where it's at.
That night we hit Buffalo Wild Wings.
Of course.
Like we do,
You do, yeah.
Look, people keep scheduling tournaments right next to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I've actually had this conversation because one of our friends asked me one time, he came up and was hanging out, and he made the joke of we were going to go eat dinner, and he made the joke. He's like, well, he said, I guess we got to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, don't we? And we're like, well, Paul's not here, so we don't have to. And so that was the joke is that since you weren't there, we couldn't go eat at Buffalo Wild Wings because it's the only time we ever go out to eat as a group. It seems like we always find the Buffalo Wild Wings.
I don't even really like Buffalo Wild Wings that much. It's just it's a place I can get reliable beer selection and chicken wings if I want them. That's.
Well, yeah, the thing is, it's one of those places that pretty much pleases everyone in our group. So it's kind of it's a nice, easy default. Just everybody go there. You don't like wings? Get the French fries. French fries.
It's a bit of a tradition. We would go and we take over the patio.
Yep.
I mean, what is it? 40 of us or something? I mean, it seems
everybody shows up. Yeah, it's kind of bonkers. I mean, I think they should probably give you your meal for free, right? Because you're bringing them a ton of business.
Yes, sponsored. This section sponsored by
this segment sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings.
It is not. But
hey, I heard they brought back Jammin' Jalapeno, so I'm pretty excited.
I don't know if anyone from their legal team listens to the show, but we were not claiming.
We were so in trouble. Yeah, I have my main problem with Buffalo Wild Wings is Jammin' Jalapeno. They, how they kind of come up with these fun names for all their sauces, and they mix that hard J with a soft J, and it drives me insane. So I call it Jammin' Jalapeno, and the waitress always looks at me weird, as she should.
Yeah, because that's the reason. I'm sure you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's already looking at me weird, probably for other reasons. But
I did. It was a fun time. Get to hang out with a bunch of people that show up. It's not that far. You actually have to cross back into Georgia for the closest one, but it's right there on the line.
Well, it's weird because the location is so close to Georgia. If you miss the exit, you're in Georgia.
Yeah,
because it is the first Tennessee exit. Yeah.
And then next year they're going to be at the convention center there in Chattanooga, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm excited. How much bigger is it going to be? Is it going to be like, is the event itself growing, or is it just we're going to have more room in the hotel and everything?
I bet we'll have more of these, like the secondary events.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to bet there'll be a larger Sigmar presence, and then the skirmish games. I mean, there was a pretty big grand clash there this year from Warhammer Underworlds. complete with event support. They even did a preview of Warcry was at the ATC.
Yeah.
That's the first year GW has ever done anything like that at the ATC. So the event is growing and continuing to grow. And I think this is going to be an event that GW attempts to support in that same fashion next year as well. No insight, but I really imagine.
Yeah, if Shane's not careful, word might get out about the ATC. People might start hearing about this thing. I mean, we might get.
Hey, we got a Canadian invasion.
Yeah, we already got like people coming from all over. I mean, if it gets much bigger, it's going to be insane.
Border's closed.
Yeah.
We don't want any winners coming down.
We're going to steal the title next year. Well, the goal is to come down with an all-Canadian team and steal the championship to the Great White North. So
take it back.
And then they'll have to rename it the Canadian Team Championship in honor of us the following year.
So what did you think? Like, what did you think of I know you mentioned the pairing system, but like overall the course of the games, the people you encountered, the spirit of the event. What was your impression this year, being a newbie?
Yeah, it was, a lot of people told me going into the event that it was their favorite event of the year, and I can definitely see why. I think first of all, like, team events are, I think for me personally, I'm kind of hit or miss on them. I have a lot of control issues and power control issues, so like, playing in a team event where I have to like rely on other people or like listen to other people that can definitely be like frustrating sometimes. And that's obviously my issue, but I guess bigger picture than that, getting to see like over the course of this tournament season, I've made so many friends throughout the US and Canada. People I've met, and getting to see kind of all of them in one place. Like it almost felt like the who's who of Warhammer, almost like kind of a mid-year LVO where you gotta get to see all your friends, everyone's out, everyone that you've kind of ran into. And so that was really cool to be able to see kind of all the guys and girls, obviously, so to speak. So that was a really great part of it. And it just really had a really cool kind of tailgating atmosphere to it. Really felt like, just such a great kind of convergence of the hobby, and both in competitiveness, but also in kind of like spirit, I guess. So I really enjoyed it from that aspect. And the event itself was run really, really well. I think obviously next year, I think it sounds like they're moving to a bigger and colder venue. So that'll be exciting because, coming from the West Coast, like, for me, like 80 degrees is a hot day. So, we don't get that kind of heat out here. So, it's definitely a bit of a struggle for me personally. I basically devolved into a big man baby when it came to the heat.
Oh, but, one of those rounds was like playing in the jungle.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I think like the section closer to the door was much cooler. And in one of the rounds, I think like round 3, we had to play in like the back corner of the arena, and it felt like at least 5 to 6 degrees hotter than the front of the arena. Like it felt significantly hotter than the front of the arena, and I was just sweating, and I was like, oh my god, this is gross. So
still not the worst one.
No, that was believe it or not, this year I was not really feeling the heat that much. Was it last year, Paul, that like the heat or that the air conditioners just weren't working?
It was either that year or the year before.
It was bad, dude. It was really bad.
But it rained. This year it rained and like helped kind of cool off the whole place, I guess. Probably was boiling up there on the roof for a while until it leveled out.
Yeah.
But that's a testament to the event. It's like over the years in the different venues this thing is shuffled from. I mean, it's never been like a tent out in the middle of Serbia, which I'm sure it's amazing. But they've kind of went from venue to
amazing.
Yeah, venue to venue. And there's been some challenges with the venue itself. Not anything that, anyone set out to do or even knew about before it kicked going, but people keep coming back because it's, the spirit of the event is so awesome.
Yeah, I think if this place was like just in a tent out in the middle of a field somewhere, I would still go.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird because it's one of the most competitive events that I attend or that I try to like. It's probably the most competitive I am each year because I'm on a team and I'm part of the team instead of just, hey, let's bring some fluffy list that's fun and I want to play. But it's also one of the most fun events you go to because win or lose, you do it as a team and you have those other guys on your team there with you. And it somehow always ends up being my favorite event every year. It really is.
My list, I thought, which I've mentioned before, I didn't think I was going to be really good at taking out knights. And then I played a knight player and I killed all his knights. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like, And then I went and played against another night player in around 5 or 6. What was the last 6 rounds? 6 rounds.
6.
I was like, oh man, I changed my mind. I can't do this. What did I get myself into? I can't kill all these knights with my strength 5 guns. It worked so well the first time.
Just roll a bunch of 5s, dude.
That's it. Just roll a bunch
It's
of
not
5s.
hard. Yeah.
Well, it's okay. Part of the
roll the 5s.
strategy of the event is also getting to pick which table that you play on. So, who gets to choose which table? You can think of it as like, oh, who cares? It's vanilla, whatever. But it can really matter for stuff like what the matchup. Like for instance, I have some tanks that don't want to be charged by knights, and that really works well if I get the ruins table. If I get the hills table, I'm up. It's a bigger uphill battle. No pun intended. Sorry.
Yeah.
To
To be fair though, and I don't know if this is my one critique of the event will be that the terrain in general was quite light. So I'm used to playing. I don't know if it's the West Coast or Northeast or whatever, but even the heavy terrain tables seemed like medium to light on kind of the tables I'm used to playing on. There was a lot of tables that functionally had no terrain, and so I think that was a bit unfortunate. I think their terrain was look, I got to give them props. There was 400 plus players, so around 200 plus tables, not including obviously 30k and Age of Sigmar. So, not at all knocking the organizers, like they, put on a great event overall, but I definitely feel like, and I don't know how big it was in previous years, like how many teams it was last year, but it definitely felt like the tables were quite light and could have used a bit more terrain.
I do think there needed to be, maybe 1 or 2 more with actual ruins on them in some capacity, even if it was just 1 or 2, maybe not a full table's worth of ruins. But that's good feedback, I think.
GW, we know you guys listen. Just pack up like 200 Shrines of the Aquila and just mail it to Shane. one Shrine of the Aquila in the middle of the table, if you build that thing as a straight wall, is fantastic. And
don't make it the actual like square or whatever.
Yeah, don't make it the square. If you just run that thing as one big wall, and then you can take bits of sprue and make it look like it's kind of holding it up or something. We've done that at the shop, and it gives you like it's like 18 inches or something long. Huge line of sight blocking that you can make out of a Shrine of the Aqua, and we use them at the shop.
In addition to line of sight blocking, the ruins have a real function about what can move up to the second level, what can do this, and so that's part of the game. And look, I'm not saying I expect on there even a normal tournament table all the time. I just I think it's a big factor in that, and there was kind of like to Jim's point, kind of a gap on some of the tables to that aspect.
Hey, yeah. I think you guys are crazy because I didn't have a problem with it at all.
You played hard ones.
What's the problem? You get a 4-up invul everywhere you go.
Yeah, when you either fly a 4-up invul or you ignore terrain.
So I was on the other end of that. I was pretty happy. But yeah, I definitely felt that quite a few times this year as well, just trying to keep my transports alive on turn 1. Very, very few places to hide. But yeah, I'm always astounded at their ability to actually have that many tables of terrain in the first place. So, of course, we'd like to see it get better as the years go. But I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I can get 50 tables of terrain to run our events. So I'm always in awe of any organization that can get that many tables together in the first place.
It's a thing. You're hearing some of these other segments with the community spotlights we do. It's a big deal to get that stuff going. And clocks were a big thing at that event, and we talked about that on the last show. And it's been pretty divisive is not the word, but it's been divided in people's opinions of the acceptance and why people are opposed to them.
Yeah, I had an opponent pull one out, and I think that may be the second time I've ever used a chess clock. But he pulled it out and asked if I minded using it at the beginning of the game, and we did it right at the beginning of deployment, so it wasn't after anything. And I loved it. Like, I absolutely loved it. And he was really good about helping me, remind me, oh, hey, make sure you hit the clock, And it took a lot of the pressure off of me, I think, because I always worry that I'm slow playing somebody. I always worry that I'm taking too much time. But when I have the clock there, it's like, oh no, I'm using my time, and I'm a full converted believer in it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I played in a clock in every one of my games, and one thing I did notice about ATC is that there's a lot of players with different skill levels, so to speak, at ATC. Like, it is like the top kind of echelon of teams are very competitive, but I'd say the majority of teams are kind of mid-range competitiveness. There's only really, like, when we were doing our kind of team research, there's 80 teams, and there was probably like 10 teams that we like looked really hard at because we knew that they had like a very good caliber of player and like lists and stuff like that. So the majority of the teams are not, that ultra competitive, like Warhammer, who stayed up, 3-4 hours the night before doing, super detailed list analysis, and they got spreadsheets and, whiteboards and all this kind of stuff. So I actually played about 3 or 4 of my games with people that had never even played on the clock. And I was like, hey, do you mind if you play on the clock? And just like you mentioned, I'd really help them out because I want to remove the boogeyman of the clock, right? I don't want them to feel like gotcha, especially if it's their first time.
Yeah.
And it really removes a lot of stress, especially in things like decision making. Like, you have no idea how many times you ask your opponent for a decision. There's a decision to be made, and every if they take a long time, it can be stressful. Especially if you got an hour left and you're only on turn 2 or turn 3. So the clock just really removes that. Like, if I feel like they're taking a long time to make a decision, I'll actually just throw the clock back to them. I'll say, here, if you want to, you can spend 10 minutes deciding if you want to deny the spell, but it's on your time, so let me know when you've decided and we'll continue playing the game. And it just removes a lot of that stress.
I think a good piece of advice for people, like, if you're pro chess clock, you need to be an ambassador of the chess clock. Don't be an a-hole about it, right? Like, if you like the chess clock, make it a good experience for your opponent to use a chess clock. Help them with it and make it a good experience, because like that's what my opponent did. And Jim, I can't remember if that was against your team that we did that. I can't remember if that's the game I played against, but whoever I played against made it a great experience for me to use that chess clock, and I didn't feel pressured. I didn't feel like I was getting gotcha'd or anything. Whereas a buddy of mine at ATC this year, he said they finished their deployment and his opponent took a ton of time to deploy, and then pull out a chess clock and tried to split the remaining time there, even though he had used far less of time. And and he had
bully him.
Yeah, and he's like, "No, get that crap off the table." So obviously a bad experience there. That's going to set people back from using a chess clock. Well, and then my experience, which is great for using a chess clock, and I would love to have it for every game at ATC. I would be completely down for that after that experience.
I think the clock, the advantages of the clocks in tournament play, specifically tournament play, greatly outweigh the disadvantages. But having seeing the comments that people made either on the Facebook page or the YouTube channels, our channel and stuff, their reasons for saying they didn't like the clock or oppose the clock was nice. There were some reasons that I had not heard before, or at least not presented before. And one of them was like a capabilities issue. It's like somebody's like, so if I don't physically move as fast, is competitive 40k not right for me? And I don't know what I think competitive 40k is definitely right for you. What's the solution there? I don't know, but you presented you've put that forward as a legitimate issue that in those circumstances, I think as a community we should address where clocks exist.
For sure, and I think like I don't want to sound like an ableist here, but there's there's a lot of sports and stuff that I can't play competitively because I don't move that fast. Like I'll never be a sprinter or a basketball player because I can't run that fast. So and I think in a lot of ways, especially when you're playing the very top echelons of certain competitive sports or games, there sometimes is a physical requirement, and that sucks. That can be unfortunate. And I think the key is, as a community, is to have different events that tailor to different ability and different speed and different, those kinds of things, so that everyone can participate in their own way.
Yes, and I think the main thing to remember though is when somebody says, well, or I have an issue that prevents me from moving models quickly, right? At the end of the day, a tournament is a timed event. There's a set time. You have 3 hours to play that game. Now, is it fair to your opponent if you take 2 hours to play your game and they only get 1 hour? That's not fair. Whether you have an issue preventing that, you being able to do that or not, it still isn't fair to your opponent. So what we have to do is figure out a way that we make it fair for someone who does have that physical limitation, while not hindering the opponent's play.
Yeah, we're not going to solve it right here on this show. I mean, we're not. Yeah. I just wanted to put it out there as like that is a good voice from the opposition that I had not really even considered before, because I've been so focused on like how to make the competitive scene better. Like how do we the intensity, the drama, all that stuff that the clock adds. The good thing, that's all good stuff, and then the equitable split of time, which I think is really outside of all the hyperbole or just opinions. That is a constant.
Yeah, it should always be equitable, and we can fix it on this show, Paul. And it's simply bring a buddy, hand him beers, and make him move your models for you, and hand me a beer every now and then, and I'm not going to complain.
You're not complaining. Well, look, I'm just saying while we're talking about it, while we are being ambassadors of the clock, like you said, but these are things we can consider, and if we have it on our mind, then maybe we do find what is the best solution, and we get it adopted across the board a lot sooner.
Yeah, and I think that is poppycock, Paul, that you say not to take it to friendly games, because I don't like my friends enough. I'm going to give them 3 hours, and then I'm out. I'm ADD, man. I'm out. I got to go. I got stuff to do.
Yeah. When you turn into a pumpkin, it's at midnight.
We have 3 hours of friendship today. This is what we're getting.
Maybe he just wants to feel like Cinderella.
I'm beautiful.
Stuff. This has been a great conversation over the last couple of weeks about the clock, and I think I still think. I mean, granted, I have a little bit of an opinion before we even started, but I think the benefits outweigh the negatives, and it's going to help as we move forward in the competition. Now, of course, who knows what's going to happen with the rules of 40k? The rules right now, the way everything is right now. But I think even back, people have also said, well, lower the points. If you lower the points, then everybody gets to play their game in 3 hours. And yes.
Yeah, no. Right. No.
But the reason we even had this conversation in the first place is because people weaponized their slow play. And they'll do that no matter what.
I spent enough time in the lending industry to understand that it doesn't matter how much money you make, you will get more credit card debt despite being rich. Like, just giving people fewer models and assuming that gives them more time and that they won't use it to their fullest extent, not realistic.
Well, I've always learned, I learned it years ago, is that the work will always fill the amount of time given to accomplish the task.
Oh, that's some straight military talk right there.
Yes, which is why I always give my soldiers about 30 minutes less time than it should take them to do it, and it somehow gets done. So I think I wholeheartedly believe that if we had 3 hour games at 1,500 points, there would still be people not finishing their games, because they would just take longer to make those decisions, because those decisions become more important. That tactical squad is way more important when you don't have 2 other tactical squads. And I think that some people will, sit there and ho-hum over that decision, and more than they would otherwise. It's just, the time is there. People are either going to use the time or they're going to waste the time. And I don't believe that turning 40k down into a skirmish game of smaller armies is going to fix that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, agreed. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and do Jim actually has a finishing move segment he's going to share with us today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, now we talked about it before. Jim's an amazing painter. He'll tell you his Instagram here in a second. I'm also going to, maybe I'll say this now. I finished my 30 horrors.
Nice.
I don't even know what I'm going to do with them yet. But, it's one of those things. It's like, guess what? Over the course of me talking about the painting these horrors, I now have 30 extra painted models than I had before. What have you guys been doing? You know what I'm saying? You could have had 30 models by now. Get on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
No pressure.
Let's take a quick break.
I feel hobby shamed.
Right. Yeah, I'm not shaming. I'm encouraging. I'm encouraging to get it done.
Now I feel like there's a hobby chess clock that you just flip the switch on. Now it's, I hate the pressure.
Big red numbers above your head right now. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back, talk about finishing the segment.
Cool.
FTN is also on Facebook. Please like us at www.facebook.com/Forge the Narrative.
We are back. I still got everybody here. I forgot to talk about that. Remember that big news I was talking about from one of our sponsors? You can find some links. I'm going to put that in the show notes. Now, some incredibly slick-looking custom Forge the Narrative objective markers. These are 40 millimeter acrylic, and they come with basically a key that you can slide right next to the objective to let you know exactly where 3 inches from the center is. You never have to guess or be worried about being out of scoring range again. I think I posted some pictures up on Twitter, but I will put some links in the show notes where you can get your set. It's a great way to support one of our sponsors and the show at the same time. Let them know you're listening. These things, I've got a set. I'm really happy. I've given a set to Scary. I'm going to give a set to the folks on the show. They are super slick. They got a really good feel to them. I think they'll travel well in your dice bag. And on one side is the FTN Rocks class. On the other side is a numbered die. So you can count your objectives from 1 to 6 if you're playing narrative stuff or an alternate mission set or whatever where the number of the objective matters. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever been more excited.
I'm excited to show them off and talk about it. It's cool stuff.
I mean, I'll lose one immediately. As soon as you hand it to me, I will lose one.
You're never going to have the 4th objective marker.
I never have a full set. I never have a full set of objective markers.
Well, there's going to be stuff coming, and you guys out there, please pick up a set. If you're looking for some objective markers, and I think one of the coolest things is the double-sided and the key that you know when you're scoring.
That is awesome. I am always looking for objective markers. I am currently looking for one 11th Company GT objective marker, and I think the number 6 from Adepticon or something from last year. I'm seriously playing with the fragments of 3 sets of objective markers right now. So save me, Paul.
You're about to add to that. You'll never. So finishing moves, it's a segment that we do. It's a hobby segment to where we talk about ways to spend just a few extra minutes on your models and really get a greater look than makes it look like you spent a ton of time on it. It really gives that curb appeal as people are walking by from your army. And Jim, apart from being a great player, you are an amazing painter, and you post up on Instagram. Please tell people where they can find you, and you've got a hobby tip to share with us.
I do. So my Instagram is Jimbo V as in vessel _paints on Instagram. You can kind of follow all my hobby progress there. Today I wanted to talk. I just had a really good conversation with a fellow Chaos player. I just finished actually for my hobby progress to kind of outdo. I don't know if it outdoes your 30 horrors, but I just finished 3 Lord Discordants, which I have to tell you are like so much. Not only are they like probably the most complex GW model I've ever built, they're incredibly detailed. There's so much detail in these models. So I just finished 3 of them, and I had a question from one of my, followers on Instagram about how I achieved the contrast between the light areas and the dark areas of my models. And so I wanted to talk quickly about using Lamian Medium. So Lamian Medium is a product that GW makes, and kind of the various uses that Lamian Medium has. And so a lot of people might look at Lamian Medium and be like, well, what is this stuff? What does it actually do? First, there are some great tips out there online, so I would recommend definitely checking online if you're interested in kind of super advanced. I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown. So Lamian Medium is essentially like pigmentless paint. This is the kind of way to think about it. It's essentially paint with no color in it. And so you can use that medium to create your own washes in your own glazes. And I use those terms slightly interchangeably, but essentially a glaze or a wash is a very thin down paint. And the difference between a glaze and a wash is more to do with the technique than it is to do with the paint. So if you glaze something versus when you wash something, it's 2 different effects. A glaze is essentially a very thin layer, a very controlled layer that you're almost like brushing a singular thin layer of paint onto a surface, whereas a wash, you're kind of flooding the area and it's a little bit more heavy-handed. And so you can use Lamian Medium to create your own colored washes. So, for instance, and just to give you some examples using real-life colors, I'm painting 3 Lord Discordants, and they are based with Thousand Suns blue, brought up to Ahriman blue, and then brought up to blue horror, which are 3 GW colors. And, those 3 colors, there's quite a bit of a range in between them. Once I've done my kind of bulk highlights, I'll go back with a glaze of, say, 50% Armin blue and 50% Thousand Suns blue, and I'll add Lamy medium to it till it's almost to the point where it's quite thin, and I'll glaze in between the 2 transitions of the colors so that my blends become super smooth. And that's something you can do after you've done all your highlights and you're happy with how the highlights look. If you want to go and kind of smooth the transition, just take your 2 base colors or your 2 kind of transition colors and create a glaze out of them and do a very thin layer. You don't want to wash because you don't want this pooling in the crevasses, and especially if it's brighter than your darkest color, which often a glaze is. It might be a mid-tone or actually a light tone. And what you can do is you can use the glaze to kind of bring the whole blend together and really bind everything into a single tone. To kind of further give the example, when I've highlighted all the way up to blue horror is actually quite bright. It's like a very bright blue. And so by using this glaze of, say, Armin blue and blue horror, I can kind of mute it down to transition it through to the other colors. So you can basically take some very choppy or rough highlights that are fairly thick, and just using a simple glaze, you can kind of make yourself look like you're a way better blender and way better at like wet blending and transitions than you actually are, and it's quite simple. One thing to also, and trick that is actually really unknown about Lamy medium, is Lamy medium actually acts like matte varnish. So if you ever have a surface as well, say you've sprayed something down or maybe something is looking quite glossy, if you literally just paint over it with straight Lamy medium, it'll completely matte it down. So if you're ever looking for a different kind of finish on something, you can literally just use Lamy medium straight out of the pot.
The finish matters more than people think too, because I mean, you can change your impression of a model just by evening out the finishes.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how much I want to get sidetracked on lighting.
I'm sorry, I don't want to change. I don't want to slow it. I just thought it's very important, even if you've never done it before, it can change the way your miniature looks.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I guess I was kind of wanting to go down the rabbit hole of that. So with the Lamy medium, it will matte down the surface. So if you're looking for more of that semi-matte, you'll definitely want to go back over it with a like a semi-gloss varnish. I believe the GW one of the GW sprays is a semi-gloss. It's like I think they're referred to as satin varnishes. That's kind of like a semi-gloss. I generally like to actually do heavy matte varnishes on all my models. I like everything dull and kind of depressing. But the satin does. The reason I like that is because, and this kind of gets more technical purpose. When we highlight a model, we're painting on our own light source. Yeah. Right. And so when you go in with a satin varnish, not only are you getting the light source that you painted on, but you're also getting more of the natural light source. And if those two things are in conflict, it can kind of throw off the look of the model. And so I like to have very matte models and let the paint, the kind of light source that I determined based on my highlights, be the one true light source, rather than the reflection of real light that a satin varnish actually brings to your model. And that's kind of why I like
your edge highlight that people would never see because you got a shiny part on your model or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing too is, if you think the GW matte medium is not a great price, you can get acrylic medium from a lot of other companies as well that do it's a very similar role as the Lamy medium. So just look for like a golden or artist acrylic medium. I have a few different types of acrylic mediums as well, and try experimenting with them. They're all going to have various viscosities and various finishes as far as matte or semi-matte. So just definitely give it a try, and if you're struggling with getting those blends really good, it's a really easy way to kind of smooth them all out.
It's the same stuff that the paint is made from. So the colors, you can put a color in it, and don't contaminate your medium, by the way. Like, you got to transfer it out of the pot or the squeeze bottle or whatever you're using, and then put your paint into what you've taken out of it. That part is very true from all the tutorials.
Yeah, and the reason that we use medium, and that's actually a really good point, Paul. So the reason we use medium and say not water is because what the medium does is it maintains the kind of fluid, like the fluidity and the viscosity and the way that the liquid paint acts. It acts like a paint. As soon as you start to get into adding water, the surface tension of the glaze and the way that it actually holds the pigment changes, and then you get much more splotchy effects, much more kind of weird drying patterns. Whereas with the medium, you get a much more consistent, smooth distribution of the pigment in the paint. So that's why the medium is important over, say, using a water, right? Water, you'll end up with all sorts of weird drying kind of chemistry. I'm not a chemist, but it's something like that. And if
you can see it though in action. That's the difference between these things. I mean, it behaves the same way that the paint would because it's scientifically the same stuff.
Right. And yeah, as I said, if you want to really go down the rabbit hole, I mean, definitely go to YouTube, and there's people that are, doing great content out there that can explain it probably a little bit better than me and with visual examples. So
awesome, man. Thanks for the tip.
I do want to point out, though, I'm looking at these Lords Discordia on Instagram, and I think your horrors probably have been outdone. So I guess Jim is hitting the hobby chess clock back to you. So I think you need to get back to work.
No, they're impressive models. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I gotta figure out an army list I'm really passionate about, and then go for it. But I want to try to do something with all the chaos demons and stuff. I mean, I love using demon princes, and I haven't put them on the table in quite some while. So other than just a one-off, whatever. I want to live the demon life for a while.
Yeah, I'm going through a bit of a hobby tournament gaming, power gaming crisis right now, because those 3 Lord Discordants are my newest, coolest thing, and I definitely want to play them in a major this weekend. But at the same time, I definitely also want to do really well. And so my hobby side of my personality and my competitive side are in kind of direct conflict as to like what list I should bring, the list that I want to run or the list I think can win. And I'm going through a bit of a crisis of confidence and kind of opinion right now. I don't really know what to do.
I trust you'll make the right choice and try to win. Try to win. Keep on winning.
Just roll sixes.
Either way, you probably feel better than the Primaris. What is it? The Eliminator tank? What is that called?
Exterminator.
The Repulsor Exterminator or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Executioner, I think.
Executioner.
Yeah,
we all knew it was an X something.
E something.
Everyone who just finished painting 3 of those instead of 3 Lord Discordants is feeling worse than you right now.
Yeah, well, I fully expect them to get a little bit of hate in the upcoming chapter approved. So they seem to be all the rage these days.
Yeah, well, you never know, right? So I want to read some reviews. Again, I'm way behind on these because I couldn't see them. Now I figured out a way to see them. We got a guy who responded going back to episode 279. He says that he loves the show, a big fan of the show. He says it's his second favorite podcast. The reason it's his second favorite podcast is because he contributes to a show called Chatter from the Vox on Warhammer, and wanted to make sure that I read that and got that in for him. Happy to do it. Another guy says this, a joy for his earballs. He said there's a little more pleasurable in life than listening to the silky smooth words of TPM, Val, Hella Hotness, Chris Morgan Freeman, and Ricky, you're so fine, you make me Addington, and Justin Starship Trooper. So slide down my earballs as they discuss all things 40k. Truly, it makes my tinkle tingle. I don't know if I can get that past the censors, but we'll see what we can do.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I am uncomfortable and
I feel somewhat touched, but I like it.
I'm going to read more of these over the time, but really thanks for the folks that did have given those 5-star reviews. That is one of the best ways that people can spread the word about the show, because I think it helps us kind of appear and other people see it. And going back and seeing these, like the flood of these is really humbling, and thanks to everyone who has taken the time to do it. I really appreciate it. You can get to see some of the vernacular from other countries. A cracking show that is.
I always have to Google some of this. I'm like, cracking's good, right? I think it's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
nice to listen to whilst they finish their Death Guard.
I want someone, if we have any fans in Scotland, I would love a full Scottish 5-star review, please.
One person says, informative and to the point, well paced and edited, and doesn't descend into the 2+ hours of needless nonsense. That almost sounds like a challenge, though, and
it sounds like a challenge, but it's also due to editing. I don't want anyone to think that there isn't 2 hours of nonsense, but Paul is very good at cutting that out. Yeah.
Look, you gotta get the juices flowing. You gotta get the pipe slimmered up. So the only way to do that is
a good hour. Yeah, a good hour each night is spent just getting warmed up.
One person says, superb podcast. Doesn't get to play competitively as often as he'd liked, but loves kind of living in the spirit of it through shows like ours. Says,
who does get to play as much as they want? So I'm with them there.
Says it's a decent blend between rules talk and strategy talk, and that's what we try and do.
Sounds like we're nailing it. I mean, I'm proud of us. Good job, guys.
Oh well,
read the one where Ricky's punctual.
Yeah. It's nice. I mean, we do this, because we enjoy doing it, and hearing the feedback like this, it's a little bit of fuel to help keep that going, and has the added benefit of helping us get noticed by other folks out there. That's all the show I want to have this week. Got that. So you got the segments. I really appreciate everybody that's going to be coming on the show as we lead up towards our 300th episode. We're only 7 away. That's like a month and a half, almost 2 months, because one show a week. But I'm gonna try our best to make it good.
Oh, and Paul, I had one more thing. Just everyone who brought me Sour Patch Kids at ATC, thank you. And I'm still eating Sour Patch Kids from ATC. So thank you, everybody that brought me Sour Patch Kids.
It's funny what you say that people pick up on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, y'all have a good rest of y'all's week. I'm going to report next week on anything I see. And I know there's going to be, I don't know about a reveal, but last year at Gen Con, GW had a lot of the Titanicus models on display that had not been in full view of the public before then. I don't know what's going to be there this time, but I'm anxious to see if there is stuff.
Well, they said, no, that's actually weird. They said Thursday at 3 p.m. BST, which is British Standard Time. So that actually might even be today.
That's right now.
That's not even a real time. Yeah, it's not a real time.
I'm like, what's BST? So it says on the Warhammer community, it says 1 week, 2 previews, Gen Con Thursday at 3 p.m. BST, and Warhammer World at Saturday at 9 p.m. BST. I'm just looking at BST right now.
That's 11:30 p.m.?
The Queen is disappointed in you.
That should have been
6:30 p.m. or a.m.?
Yeah, so that would have been 7 a.m. this morning, which doesn't make sense.
3 p.m. Thursday is 3 p.m. Yeah, 3 p.m. Thursday.
That'd be 11:30 a.m. That'd be 11:30 a.m.
Yeah,
like next week.
Tomorrow.
Does Gen Con go into next week? Oh, it's Thursday tomorrow. Jesus, I thought it was Friday today. Man, I thought it was Thursday.
Jim, what is
reveals tomorrow? Reveals tomorrow. That's what I'm saying.
In the meantime, I'm over here on MST thinking, what does that actually translate to?
Yeah, no one can do that math.
Yeah, dude, your time zone doesn't exist either. Yeah. No one remembers that.
There you go. Our podcast has been referred to as a heartwarming real-life drama as psychotherapist Paul works with a range of guests, helping them better grasp their reality and the consequences of their day-to-day actions, and also helps with time zone and currency conversions.
I'm going to be honest. If I turned a movie, if I turned the cover of, if I read that as the synopsis for something, I don't know that I would watch it, but I'll take it.
Look, the reviews don't lie. I hope you're all better folks for being on the show this hour.
Oh my God, that was great.
Yeah, y'all have a good rest of y'all's week, and we will talk again next week. More to come. Can't wait.
I'll be on time, I swear.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for listening.